It's a loud and noisy world out there online. How can we as creative authors compete in the pay-to-play environment and master copywriting as creative storytellers? This is the topic of this first episode in 2021 because I really want to encourage you to learn the marketing skills as well as the creative skills. And we will talk about these interesting topics with none other than Bryan Cohen, a really well-known author and coach in the author community, who will give you an insight into the ad platforms, especially Amazon ads, and explain why copywriting is storytelling and how you can get the most out of the copywriting process, especially when it comes to writing a blurb for your book. I hope you're as excited as I am. Please comment, let me know how you liked the episode. Don't forget to share it if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Let's dive right into the interview.
I am the founder of Best Page Forward, which is an author copywriting agency that writes the book descriptions and ad copy for authors. I also run Amazon Ad School and the 5-Day Amazon Ad Profit Challenge, which help to teach authors how to use their copy, but also how to run paid ads. I'm also an author myself. I've written 8 novels and have a couple dozen workbooks out and the whole thing. So that pretty much covers it. When I moved into the real world, I was trying to become an improv comedian back in the day in Chicago, Illinois. And it was a lot of fun, but I could kind of see the lack of writing, because there's not always writing in improv, the lack of writing on the wall, which said that you basically have to be the top percent of the top percent to make it in comedy. And so I did end up transitioning to blogging and then eventually to writing books. I took some of my blog posts and combined them into my first book and really just fell in love, not just with the writing and the publishing, but also the author community as a whole. I like creating, but I'm a big fan of helping other people to create, helping them to get their creations out in front of other people. I come from a long line of teachers. My bubby, my grandmother, both of my parents are teachers. I love teaching. And so it's really just about finding that balance between the education and the teaching.
The online world has changed over the last years. It's getting even more and more noisy, and the noise is becoming deafening. How can authors reach their readers? And is it necessary nowadays to dabble into paid advertising? Can we make it by just writing a book, put it out into Amazon, do some content marketing, or do we have to get into the pay-to-play environment?
It is loud. It is quite noisy. I started self-publishing pretty close to the beginning. In about September 2010, I believe, was when I self-published my first book. So Kindle had only been out for about a year at that point, and Kindle Direct Publishing even had a different name. That's how old it was back then, like Amazon something publishing. And back then, I had a blog. I sent traffic from my blog. There wasn't any kind of Amazon advertising you could use. And it sold. And it sold just from that. There were not as many books out on that subject at the time. There were not a lot of ways to market. So if you could do anything to promote to your own audience, already gave you a leg up. That was 10 years ago. In the last few years, really, it started to become this situation where unless you have a couple of things working in your favor, in the beginning, it was like, oh, it's a book and there's traffic to it. Great. Now it's like, well, you need there to be traffic to it, but you and 100 other authors are sending traffic to their books all at the same time. So yours needs to stand out, and you might need even more targeted traffic to go to it. I think in the beginning you could send it to your family and friends at first and be okay, but now it's becoming more pay to play. It's becoming more that if you even want to find the books that someone bought in conjunction with yours, your also boughts, you have to scroll all the way down the page, down underneath the customer reviews. No one is making it there. And so aside from maybe Amazon doing some automated recommendations via email, no one will find out about your book unless you put a little extra oomph behind it. And the most affordable, effective oomph at this time, technical term, oomph, is Amazon advertising, because people are already on Amazon, and then you're pushing them to another Amazon page so they don't feel like, oh, it's kicking me off Facebook or it's pushing me off of BookBub to something else. This is from one place on one website to one place on the same website. And it is right now the best thing you can do. And I think for the purposes of knowing if there's a chance for your book, if your book is profitable, I would say paid advertising is a must.
But when it comes to paid advertising, there's always money involved. You have to spend money and you don't know if you're going to get back your money's worth. You have to test, and this is actually quite risky for authors, especially those who are still starting out and who are still trying to profit from their books. So where do we even get started if we want to go into paid ads with Amazon?
I like it earlier in the process than maybe some, because you don't know what you don't know. There's the old adage about the business plan and how if you could write a business plan, you could write a 3-year projection, a 5-year projection. 6 months in, you're going to have to throw it out anyway, because everything is going to go differently than you expect it to go. You don't know if your book is set up correctly to be marketed well or not. You don't know if your book actually should be selling more than it is, or it's selling about what you can expect. And so I like to run low bid, low cost ads. I'm not a big fan of really targeted, high bid, like over $1 per click type ads, because you get to choose. You can tell Amazon, I don't want to spend more than 30 cents per click. And if all ads are free until someone clicks, so you could get tens of thousands of people to see your ad, but until someone clicks, you don't pay a dime. But you get to choose what Amazon is going to charge your credit card for each of those clicks. So I recommend you start with a low bid. You start with 35 cents if you're in the UK, or you're in Germany, probably closer to 15 cents or 15 pence. You do not need to bid a lot. Even if your ad doesn't show, then at least you know, hey, this was too low for that, but you don't necessarily want to crank it up right away. And your goal at the beginning is to get 100 clicks to one of your books, because that's a good sample size of, okay, 100 people visited my sales page from this ad or multiple ads. It doesn't all have to be one in one ad, just 100 clicks overall. And then you look at your either your KDP beta report dashboard or book report or whatever you use. Don't even look at the Amazon. You could turn off the sales data on the Amazon ad dashboard. It's all a bunch of junk. But you go look at your full sales for the book and you say, okay, I got 100 clicks. How many sales did I have? And that's going to essentially give you that percentage, because you see, all right, 10 sales. Okay, that means 10% of people bought. I get a sale for every 10 clicks by doing that math. And 10 is decent. You might want it to be even better. Lower is better. It's like golf. 6 clicks, 8 clicks, that's more likely to be profitable. But if it's something like I got 100 clicks and only 3 sales, or two people read my book on Kindle Unlimited from cover to cover, I count that as a sale too. So 5 people, that would be every 20 clicks, which isn't quite as good. So that's really, like you said, it costs money to test. That's sunk cost. You should put that out there, because if you try it right off the bat and it's 30 clicks to 1 sale or 40 clicks to 1 sale, something is wrong, and you need to pump the brakes a little bit, see what it is you can fix with your book's sales page, because you should not run any more ads until you get it figured out. What is wrong with this that I can fix?
And this is where copywriting comes in, because the blurb of the book is one of the most important conversion points when it comes to the decision of whether the reader will buy your book or not. But I know that many authors shy away from the blurb. I am one of them. The question is, why? And is copywriting maybe something that we can master because it is a form of storytelling?
It is. That's a really great question, because you absolutely are telling a story, which is why a lot of storytellers cringe when they have to write a book description, because they don't think that it is a story. They think that it's some required summary of this story, and they're aghast, saying, well, I've written this 80,000 word masterpiece. How dare you even suggest I write it in 200 words? This is an outrage. I want to speak to your manager. That's what they say. And you're not actually summarizing 80,000 words when you're writing a book description. You're telling a whole different little story, focused very, very specifically on your 1 or 2 protagonists' emotional journey. What are they going through with the biggest beats of the story? Where are they at the beginning? What is the big inciting incident that hits them, that kicks the action in? And how did they react emotionally to that big inciting incident? And then they're dealing with the trying to get what they want by the end of the story, trying to stop the bad guy or fall in love or find enlightenment. And how are they coping with this journey? And then what is the big question that is going to excite readers, that whether or not they achieve their emotional conclusion there? The will they or won't they? The will he stop the bad guy or make the ultimate sacrifice? Will he discover what his purpose is before it's too late? Whatever that beat is, that closing things off, so that we know as a reader, there is a beginning, middle, and end to this, but I want to know how it ends, and I want to know all the stuff in between, all the spaces that were not filled in by this relatively bare bones book description that only goes into a few key things, but it absolutely is a story.
And Bryan has already mentioned the big question, how to condense an 80,000 word masterpiece into 200 words. Seems like an impossible task, doesn't it? And how can we as authors distance ourselves from our work to look at the blurb as something entirely different?
When you have an 80,000 word book, you're tempted to condense. It's not about condensing. It's about making a choice. You choose what is the number one conflict. You choose which is the character, or which are the 2 characters maximum that I'm going to focus on. You choose what is the inciting incident, how am I going to express that here? And you choose as much what to include as you do, well, you actually choose a lot less of what to include, obviously, but you're making those choices, and then you write a description based on the choices rather than how am I going to condense that 20,000 words where they're in a cave? Like, how am I going to put that in there? You don't need to worry about that. It's the same with like book covers. You think that everything from the book needs to be on the cover, but obviously it doesn't. You only need a few key things. So that's the first point, is that you're not condensing, you're making choices. And then the second thing is getting that distance. This is where it's kind of like how you want to get a little bit of help outside of your own head. Just like you use an editor for your book, there's no reason why you can't use someone for your book description. This is a thing that's going to get viewed, you hope, tens of thousands of times over the life of the book. So it needs to be stronger, especially because of that. But there's nothing wrong with you're writing a book. Let's write the book description too. Send that off to the editor. Or you're writing a book. I'm going to send that to my critique partner. Hey, how about I send this blurb as well? You can include the blurb earlier in the process than you might usually, in an effort to just try to get people to give you feedback on it.
I absolutely love this strategy, and I actually went through a whole course on that topic because it makes you think about what's important in your story. It makes you have this focus and condense it to the most important conflict before you even start writing it. And on the other hand, you realize what's the selling point for the book. But if you have written your book already, how do you decide what the most important conflict is? Because for you as an author, everything just seems very, very important.
3 words that it's like written on a stone tablet somewhere. Death, love, enlightenment. Those are the 3 words. When you're trying to make the choice, that conflict must connect up with, is someone going to live or die based on this? That conflict must connect up with, and this is an or, because usually you're not going to have all 3. So death is usually your fantasy, will they or won't they save the world? Your thriller, will they or won't they save the world, or get back the girl before she's killed, whatever. And your sci-fi, will they stop this robot from taking over? That's your deaths. Your love is romance. Obviously something like romantic suspense. You've got a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. But with romance, it's always will they or won't they fall in love. And then with women's fiction, literary fiction, memoir, which still has kind of a fiction sort of blurb, is the enlightenment. Will he figure out his purpose for being here? Will he connect with his soul? Will he get over this terrible tragedy? So if it's a conflict that's not connected up with death, love, or enlightenment, it needs to be a different conflict. It needs to be higher stakes. Blurbs are dramatic. Some might even call them melodramatic, because readers need to know this isn't just another young adult dystopian book. This isn't just another contemporary romance. This isn't just another historical fiction novel. This is something different that has emotional stakes that will really connect up with your readers.
I like how Bryan emphasizes genre with this, because in the blurb, the genre has to shine through. The reader has to know exactly what he or she is getting themselves into. You have to be clear about your genre, as you have to make a dramatic point about your conflict. So maybe we got it all wrong. Maybe it's the mindset that keeps getting in our way as creative authors about writing copy. And how can we rediscover the fun in copywriting?
I think that it's helpful if you become a student of ad copy, you read ads. Amazon now has hundreds of ads every time you visit Amazon. You can start to flip through them and get some ideas. You can look at book descriptions. You can look at these pieces of copy. I have an old course where I was teaching ad copy, where the first assignment was in the world, and maybe right now that's on your phone, which is fine, in your house on your phone, but look at the ads that show up when you go to website. Look at the ads on Google. Look at the ads if you are out and about. Look at them on the subway, etc. Read them. Write down the good ones. What do you like about them? What do you not like about them? Because if you become a student of writing, you will write better books. If you become a student of marketing, people will buy those books. You kind of need to become a student of both if you're going to succeed. But back to your question, the creativity portion, I think you need to stop relegating marketing stuff to after 3 o'clock when you're tired, or I guess after 15 o'clock, depending on where you are in the world. But anyway, you need to stop putting it to the last second when you don't really have enough energy. You need to make the marketing some of it needs to go during your creative time. And there is a case to be made for writing the book description and the ad copy before you even write the book. Several years ago, thriller author Adam Croft did this in a big way. He wrote hooks until he had the perfect hook for his thriller book. Then he put it out. Then he made hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. And so that doesn't mean you have to do it that way. But I've seen other instances. A friend of mine came to me with a blurb for a new written to market, in the Chris Fox way of talking about it, written to market series for a paranormal cozy mystery. I know the genre pretty well. I read the blurb and said, there are 3 or 4 things wrong with this that are not on trope. They are not the right tropes and the right kind of characters for paranormal cozy mystery. And because she was working on the book but not finished it, she was able to change the blurb, change the book. She's now on book 13 of that series, makes over $9,000 a month. And it started with, well, let's get the blurb right first, because that's going to help us get the book right, which is going to help us make the marketing work.
What a great and new perspective on writing the blurb and on writing ad copy. Because you might have written an 80,000 word masterpiece or something longer or shorter, but nobody will read it because your blurb doesn't reflect the quality of your book. Your ad copy is not good enough to get it into the hands of readers that might enjoy that book. So never underestimate the power of a blurb and the power of ad copy. And if there is such a thing, what would be the most important ingredient in the blurb?
A strong ending with that depth, love, and enlightenment concept in mind. The last word of the last part of your ad copy, and some people will write 1 sentence or multiple sentences, as long as the last word in your ad copy is that expression of death, murder, blood, whatever, love, heart, forever, or soul, connection, whatever you are doing, whichever of the 3 your book is focused on. That as the last word or concept is so important, because when I used to do improv, it was always about leaving the audience wanting more. And when you're writing a blurb, it's about leaving the readers wanting more, because they need a reason to, they're going to be paying money that is going out of their bank account to your bank account eventually. They need a good enough reason. And so they are going to click a button and buy if you give them a 99-cent, $2.99, $3.99 reason to buy the book. And that final concept of the hook, final concept of the end of your book description may just be the reason they need to make that transaction happen.
A great note to end the interview on. And before the recap of the most important points Bryan mentioned in the interview, I ask the most important question I ask every guest, which is, what's your favorite story and why?
I don't know if anyone will have mentioned this in your episodes. Grey's Anatomy. Well, let me tell you why I'm going to say Grey's Anatomy. I'm not saying that Grey's Anatomy is not a soap, an evening soap, with intention of being trashy and scandalous and all of that. It is. But to label that as bad writing is a misunderstanding of the entire concept of story. Stories all have a purpose. The purpose of Grey's Anatomy is to be the most talked about evening soap opera on television. And now it's in its 17th season, I believe. To have done that for 17 years, to be able to go through hundreds and hundreds of episodes of television and still be able to tell a story that millions of people want to watch every single week. And really, that show may only end when they get bored because they know they can do it. And I have honestly watched every single episode of that show in 17 seasons worth of shows. And I remember I got the first season on Netflix the year it came out when they were still handing out the DVDs. I got a Netflix DVD of that first half season and just the ending. Oh, so you must be the woman who's been blanking my husband. And like that is the biggest cliffhanger of all time, season to season. There is just like so much good line to line, character to character, episode to episode, season to season callbacks and writing in that show that anyone who's planning on writing a series or writing in that kind of genre of romance, because it is a romance, anyone who's planning on writing in that should sit down and watch Grey's Anatomy because it is an exceptional story and you will get better at writing if you look at it as a storyteller.
And Bryan was right. Nobody has ever mentioned Grey's Anatomy before, but I'm glad he did. And I'm always amazed about what different kinds of books and shows my guests are mentioning, and I can always learn from them. And now, before Bryan tells us more about where we can find him and his amazingly interesting Amazon ad challenge that I will also be part of the beginning of the year, let's recap the most important points we learned in this interview. So Amazon ads is the best way to get started because people come with the intent to buy something already to Amazon and they remain on that page. They don't have to go from Facebook to Amazon or BookBub to Amazon. The best way to test Amazon ads is to bid low and to get 100 clicks and see how many conversions you have from them. This will tell you if your book packaging works well. Copywriting essentially is storytelling. You have to include conflict. You have to include beginning, middle, and end. Include characters. You want to tease and you want to ask questions, build suspense, ask questions the reader needs an answer to. And the blurb is not about condensing, but about choice. What is the most important conflict in your story? To choose that conflict, you have to think about 3 words: death, love, enlightenment. Pick conflicts connected to one of those 3, which also communicate your genre clearly and in the best way. Also end with a bang. Give them a reason to click that buy button. It was a really interesting interview, and now where can we find Bryan and everything that he does online?
Every quarter of the year, my team and I do a free Amazon ad challenge. So it's like a free mini course online, and we all do the homework in a Facebook group together. And we had 20,000 authors take it last year, so people really like it. And we'll have the link in the show notes, but it's look for it out there. It's the January 5-day challenge. We'll put up a link, sellingforauthors.com /January. And then I have a podcast as well, The Sell More Book Show. You can check that out at sellmorebookshow.com. And if you want my team of intrepid author writers to write your book description for you, you can go to bestpageforward.net/blurbs, and we will write that for you in a month.
Links are in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you got some value out of it and you're motivated to get a fresh start into the new year. Go ahead, be part of the Ad Challenge. Don't forget to rate and share this podcast if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you listened on YouTube. Thank you for your time, and I see you next week.